The Sleeper Series takes us to Stillwater, Oklahoma, where a new era begins as Eric Morris and a lot of guys from Denton, Texas come on out and they take over the Big 12 territory that was once heralded by the legendary Mike Gundy for 20 plus years. Now, a new face is in town for the first time since many of these players were even born. How do they do in a 1 year transformation? Can Oklahoma State go from 1-11 to a college football playoff contender? It seems like a big ask, especially in 1 year. But the hype surrounding them, what they're building from an offensive standpoint, leads me to believe that if they can pull an upset here and there, we could be seeing them in the final 12 come December. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. This is Lucas Hill here with the Southern Sports Scene. Everybody do us a favor. Y'all hit the like, share, and subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notifications so that you are notified every time we go live, posting a video or post a new short here on the Southern Sports Scene. Every live show brought to you by our good friends over at FrostBuddy. Going over to frostbuddy.com. Use our promo code SSS15 to get 15% off of your first purchase. That's code SSS15 to get 15% off of your first purchase. So look, and also want to thank you to our friends at Chike Nutrition. Make sure you click the link below to get 10% off of the best coffee that's on the market. With 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat, and 1 gram of sugar, you can get the best start to each and every single one of your days. So here's the thing that Oklahoma State had struggled with. The start of NIL was a big issue for them because they had struggled to adapt to player compensation. Now, I did want to read a post from my guy, Wilson Alexander, who's now with On3. One of the biggest things is that he's having to play catch up to a lot of people. And even in our conference, we'd be playing catch up. But we won't ever let that be an excuse. I still believe in the developmental piece and aspect of college football. Crazy as it sounds, they don't seem to have a lot of money to spread around in regards to NIL. Oklahoma State's roster as a whole looks like this. You brought in a top 10 transfer portal like crazy. 54 players from the portal, just absolutely insane. You brought in Drew Mestamaker, who a lot of people are already looking at him as a top 10 quarterback in the class of 2027. I'm telling you right now, he's not entering the draft at this point in time. And if he does, it's a stupid decision that he would make. But again, I don't see that happening anytime soon. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the G6 this past year, breaks down the move, and he looks really good during spring ball. Of course, this is the same offense that he ran at his previous school. He's not going to get sacked a lot, man. And I think that his poise in the pocket has shown, and he's done a really, really, really good job in guiding this offense and helping it get to new heights over the course of the couple years that he was with Eric Morris. You bring in a lot of talent from Denton. You bring in Caleb Hawkins, who was one of the best freshman running backs in college football this past year. I think he even had more rushing yards than Jeremiah Love himself. Was first team All-American, the American Rookie of the Year. 25 touchdowns, led all of college football in rushing touchdowns. I do believe that he led all of Division I as well in total touchdowns as well, but I will make sure that I get the right info before that. But Caleb Hawkins is a really dangerous guy in the backfield, can take a house call any given point in the day. He's a dual threat guy, gets out of the backfield really efficiently, and a great check down guy. If Mestamaker is going to get pressured, he's going to dump it up to a guy like Hawkins, and he's going to make a damage, and he's going to cause a lot of damage. And you know that there's been some great running backs that have come through Oklahoma State as of recent. And you talk about the legacy that Oklahoma State has. When you talk about Hall of Famers like Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders, to a lot of offensive weapons that have come through, like Brandon Whedon, like Justin Blackman, many other different Oklahoma State players that have come and passed in recent years and have left their mark greatly on Oklahoma State football. Make no mistake about that. When we talk about James Washington, who's a former Biletnikoff Award winner, Mason Rudolph, Mr. Swing his helmet around everywhere, Justice Hill, who was the fastest player that I've seen on a football field at Oklahoma State. There's a really good chance that if you see a guy like Caleb Hawkins step onto Stillwater, his presence is going to be felt immediately. I think this is an offense that is obviously going to have to work through its kinks. But the good part about it is that you have a good bit of offensive linemen that you brought from UNT that is now currently in Stillwater at this current moment. But I think there's a guy that is going to go under the radar throughout the year. And I'm not talking about Wyatt Young because I know the type of impact that he will make. I think the tight end room is going to be a pretty good look for you. Donovan Green from LSU and the Texas A&M transfer. Think about the impact that he's going to make. Was a 200-yard receiver during his first full year. I had him as a top tight end to look out for this year. I think he was an elite get for LSU this past year. The problem is he couldn't see the field. I think in this more wide open offense, Mestamaker is going to have a safety valve too, other than Hawkins. Donovan Green plays that X/F tight end really efficiently. He plays his role. And I think he's going to continue to do that in an offense that Eric Morris sets. I think it's going to be very similar to what UTSA's offense was this past year, especially with what they did with their tight ends and how efficient they were. So I would expect there to be a big emphasis in the tight end room and how deep they're going to have to be in that department. As we see offenses that are very balanced, and especially in the American Conference where it's very air raid heavy. Like what we see with Jeff Traylor's offense, what we saw with Eric Morris this past year. And even at times when you had the quarterback, what we saw with a team like Tulane. Crazy as it sounds. But Oklahoma State is going to have a lot of weapons. Justin Bowick is a guy that could be a 1,000-yard receiver. Clint Barnes is someone that plays in the slot really well. Quick. But the number one receiver is obviously going to be Wyatt Young from Tompkins High School. Fast. One of the best route runners in the American Conference this past year. And he's showing you why. He's showing you how dominant that he can be in the trenches. Continuing to do that over and over and over and over again. Really dominant player. On the defensive side of the ball, what does Oklahoma State look like in that department? It's kind of hard because all the focus has been on the offensive side of the ball. You went out and you got Todd Grantham, and it was a freaking disaster. It was an absolute disaster. You gave up 69 to Oregon. You gave up 45 to Baylor, and you pissed the bed against Tulsa. Now you go into a whole new era where I'm not expecting Oklahoma State to go from the bottom of the barrel in the Big 12 and all of a sudden be one of the best defenses in the Big 12. I just don't see that 1 year transformation happening for me. I like Skylar Cassidy as your DC. I do think there are times where you did get yourself into some unnecessary high scoring battles, a la what we saw against San Diego State, against Tulane, against South Florida, where we give up 63, Army, Western Michigan, all great examples. I don't know if he's your DC at the end of the day. But again, I'm not the one that's going to have to make that decision. I think this is a year where if it doesn't work with Cassidy, I think you go in a different direction. But I think that defense is going to determine whether or not Oklahoma State is going to be a playoff contender or not. If Oklahoma State is middle of the pack in the Big 12 when it comes to total defense, and if they're not giving up games like South Florida and what that North Texas defense did against San Diego State, an offense that really, really wasn't good at all last year. The only reason why San Diego State was able to give up, just run the football down the field is because they were very efficient running the football. Now I think that you have a year in the portal. You're able to get guys. You got James Williams from Florida State. That's got a lot of potential when he's healthy. Jerry Lawson in the middle is going to cause a lot of havoc. I think Ethan Weslowski played a really big role as a linebacker, led the team in tackles, and was a second-team All-American Conference. Braylon Rigsby is a guy that I think could play between a 3 and a 4-eye. I think he can play in both of those positions, and I think he can dominate in the trenches. And I think that's a big area where Oklahoma State is going to have to focus on in this upcoming season. So when I look at Oklahoma State's schedule, at Tulsa, first game of the year, and then you immediately, right afterwards, you're playing Oregon. Oregon's going to be a top 5 team. They bring back Dante Moore. That's going to be an interesting offensive matchup between the two. How does Oklahoma State stack up against them defensively? I don't know if you're pulling off the upset there. If you keep it close, though, I think you're sending a signal to the rest of college football that you're not the same slouches that you were this past year. I think there's a good chance that you start the month of September 3-1, and you have to if you want to keep your playoff hopes alive. It's not an easy schedule. Let's just be honest. You go to West Virginia with a revamped offense with Rich Rodriguez coming back in his second full season as West Virginia's head coach for his second tenure. You go to Space City to play Houston, who is my projected favorite to be in the Big 12 championship game. You go to Arizona State, a home game against Texas Tech, at Kansas State. By the way, they still got a guy that people were projecting a future Heisman Trophy winner in Avery Johnson. I think realistically, we're looking at Oklahoma State being an 8-4 team. But by God, dare I say it, if they can get out of September at 3-1, and if they can get an upset against Texas Tech or take care of business on the road against Houston, they're in a really good position to win the football, to be in the Big 12 championship. Even if they lose, I'm not slacking at that. They could be a very, very sleeper pick to be in the college football playoff. And I've been saying this since Eric Morris was named the head coach, because I knew that there was going to be a lot of departures following his announcement officially as the head coach. I knew it was going to happen. We will see what they decide to do. Really, the committee, I should say, if it comes down to that decision. But I think that Oklahoma State is talented enough to be a playoff contender when it is all said and done. But let me know what you guys' thoughts are in the comments below. What do you like most about Oklahoma State? What are you expecting of them? Please leave me your thoughts. Make sure you like, share, subscribe down below. Turn on the bell notifications so that you are notified every time we go live, posting a video or posting a short. And as always, ladies and gents, stay blessed. Don't stress.